Hello everybody. I want to crank out a short little video today and show you a handful of ways to query a string array, an array of strings. Okay. As it turns out, this is kind of an intro to Linq, language integrated query, and Lambda methods. But you know, there's more than one way to skin a cat when you're going about this type of operation. So if you come to C# and you've been doing it for a while and you haven't explored Linq, that's an interesting technology. But let's just start off by defining an array of strings. What I'm using here is Visual Studio 2015, running in Windows 10. And I just created a simple console application. Okay, so I'm going to start off, and I'm just using the main method. I use most of the defaults. The name of the project is Linq Intro, and the name of the class that I'm using is Program. That's the default class that pops up when you create a project. So I'm going to create an array of strings. So string array names equals, and then I'm just going to explicitly define the names here. Start off with me and some people I know. Let's see, sport, John, Manzor, forgetting my quotes, Erica, Corley. Okay. Yep, got one more. All right, so I have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I got 8 names here. That's enough just for the demo. Okay, so the first method that comes to mind is I'll say method 1. I'll just put a comment in here. Method 1. Using a for statement, and then when you're going through, so what we're doing is we're going to go through this array of strings, and we're going to look for strings within the array that meet a particular criteria, and you'll need some place to put the results. The problem is, you know, generally speaking, if you find a string that matches your criteria, right? And we'll keep the criteria simple in this particular case. Then we're going to have some place to put those. And we don't know, we could say, all right, well, I'm going to create an array for the results that will equal the length of the string array, because, well, you're probably never going to have more, right? Unless you have multiple criterias. But but this is the perfect example of when a collection would come into play. So we have the generic collections using namespace already included as default. So we can go ahead and just say, well, we'll stick our results from this query into a collection. So I'll say list string. That'd probably be perfect. Okay. I'll say results equals new list string. My UPS just went off. Okay, now I'm just going to use a for statement for int I equals 0. I less than names dot. I'm sorry, I made a mistake up here. Names I less than names dot length. Okay. I++. So now I'm just going to go step through this array, and I'm going to say if names, right, and then I. So if that element, right, and it's a string, dot contain, to upper, I'll convert it to upper, to upper dot contains, if it contains two L's like that, open brace, closing brace, we're going to do something here. And namely, what we're going to do is we're going to say results. Just add it to the results. Add names. Just like that. Okay. So the next thing is we'll go ahead and print this out. So let's see here. We will do a now we're going to iterate over the results, right? So that's another. It's a collection essentially, right? So I'm just going to say for each string s in results. Okay. Do something. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say console right line s, just like that. Okay. Now I'm going to run this from the debugger. So I'm going to put out a print, just a console console.readline, and this will pause the console before it disappears, because if I just run the program and from, like, I'm just going to go up here to the start. You see where my cursor's at? I'm going to hit start and it'll run. All right, so it prints out William, which is exactly what I thought it would print. But let's try another, let's change something here. So we're going to go back into the code, and we're going to go back up to the criteria, which is on line 21 here. And I'm going to say, well, let's see if we go through there and we find a name with, you could totally combine these criteria too. So I'll just say 1L. All right. So save that and run. Okay, now we got 3 names coming back, as you can see right here. Okay, this is the results of running. So we have 3 names coming back and it meets that criteria. So that's totally one way to go about getting the results. Okay, or and going through a string. It's perfectly fine too. It works great. You know, you could totally do different things. We could say, well, you know, not to get too bogged down in details, right? But let's say that I'm just looking for names. I'll just say names. So I'll say, show me all the names where the name is length greater than I'll say 6 characters. All right, so essentially what I'm doing here is every string within an array of strings, you can treat it like an array itself, right? So I'm going to say, well, show me what the length of that string is, right? And then if that string is greater than 6 characters, so we should have 1, 2, 3. Okay. So we should get 3 names. All right. So save it and run it. Let's see what happens. All right. So we get 3. All right. So the criteria is really up to your imagination on how you want to formulate the criteria, but we're stepping through the array, the array of strings, okay, with a for statement. That's the important part right here. Now, let's try method number 2. So that's method number 1. So let's come on down to method 2. Now, as long as we're not altering the string, right, we could have went through the original array of strings, okay, the same way we went through the results collection, which is we could use a for each statement. Okay, so method number 2. Method 2. Use for each statement. Now, really, the only thing I need to do here, well, let's just go through here. I'll repeat. And I'll keep the results for ease of simplicity. I'll put the results back in. I'll use the same collection. So the very first thing I want to do here is I want to clear results. Results dot clear, like that. So I'm going to clear all the objects out of the results for this one, and then I'm going to say for each, right? String s in names. Okay, this is almost okay. What we're going to do is if, then we'll do the criteria. We'll just repeat it, and I could copy it, right? I'll say, well, if names, if s, right? Now we see the difference is we're not using the I to access each element in the array of names. We're just using s in this case, right? So s, which now is a string, s dot length greater than 6. Okay. If it's greater than 6, then add it to the results. Results add s, like that. Now what we'll do is we can just go ahead and copy this, because this is our print for the results, right? We already know how to go through the results. It's the same exact way. V. All right, so we got the read line. Yeah, it's still there. Okay, so command save. Now let's run this. We should get, in fact, let's make a demarcation line, otherwise we're going to get lost. So in between the first method and the second method, I'm just going to put a console write line, and I'm going to say quote /n for a carries return, maybe two /n's fine, /n, and then some dashes so that we can have a demarcation, and then /n just to offset it one more time, and semicolon. So to review, so far, this is the first method is using a for statement, which requires declaring a counter variable, right, I, and then accessing names array, right, this is the array of strings, accessing names using the array offset, right? So I equals 0, that's the first element. And we'll say names I dot length, right? Or next method is we're going to go through that with a for each statement. So here we have for each. The difference is now we have s. We've said string s in names. If s dot length greater than 6, results add. So this should produce the same results, right? So let's run that and see. All right, so it does. Okay, there's our results. Method number 1, William Manzor Corley, William Manzor Corley. Okay, method number 3, and I'll add here before I get a blast of shit from the community out there. This is probably not an exhaustive list of doing this. I'm sure enterprising folks will have other ways of stepping through these arrays. But now we can enter Linq. Okay, Linq is a technology that is probably not much used. Well, it's used a lot, right, in the C# ecosystem itself. But it takes a little getting used to, right? It's not, I would say it's not probably the most intuitive way of doing this kind of stuff. But it produces the same results. And then when you get into the Lambda methods and combine those with Linq, you get really into very compact a way to query collections, right? Not just arrays of strings, but I'm just using this as a demo. So let me just go ahead here and say method 3 using Linq. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to create let's see here. I'll just use, I'm going to use something different. I'm going to say var. I'll say Linq results. Var Linq results. Okay. Equal. Now, let me just type this out and I'll explain what's going on. from, okay, s in names, hit return. No, notice there's no semicolon at the end of that line. Where s dot length greater than 6. Okay, select s. Great. Now let's go ahead and step through link results. Okay, and we can totally just do same thing that we did up here with this for each statement. But before I do that, let me go up here and copy this. There's my demarcation line. And I'm going to put it right here. Okay. So for each. String s in link results. Well, we're going to do the same thing that we did above, right? And we're just going to say console. Oops. For each s in link results, we're just going to print out right line s, just like that. Now let's run it. And that's Linq. Okay, so what Linq did, let me pull this down. My console keeps jumping out of the bounds of my display window. Up here, these results, the for statement. These results, we iterated the names array with a for each statement. In these results, we iterated using Linq. Okay, so let's go back to Linq here. So this is built into the language of C#. This is pretty cool stuff. Right? It allows you to use, if you're familiar with SQL for relational database queries, it looks very similar. It's not exactly the same, but it looks very similar. So from, where, although in SQL it's the other way around. You'd go select blah blah from the tables, where is your criteria. In Linq we kind of go the other way. We go from s in names, okay, where s dot length, where is our criteria, right? Same thing, essentially. It's just backwards. Select s, okay. So from s in names, where s dot length is greater than 6, select s, console.writeLine, and of course, we just showed you, runs like a champ. Okay, there's our results. Now we can actually compactize this a little bit more using Lambda methods. Okay. Okay, Lambda methods or Lambda expressions. So I'm going to go ahead and first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to reuse link results. I'm going to say link results. I'll just go ahead and just use the link results just like this, and just right over top of it. Now, names. Notice here that we have where is built into the object itself. It's actually, I believe, an add-on method. Okay, so where. Now this is going to look a little strange because to the uninitiated, you're going to go, what? So link names where x, okay, we could say s, I imagine, s, okay, don't, like this, okay, s dot length, right, greater than 6, just like that. S dot length greater than 6 equals true. All right. Let me spell link right. Link results equals names results. Oh, let me spell it correctly again. Linq results equals names where s less or equals. Okay, actually this is the lambda expression, right? This is like a I'm not even sure remember the name of that thing, right? But what it's saying is, hey, if this is in this part of this criteria right here, right? Then select that string, right? Notice we just compacted everything onto one line. So let's come down here and go. Let's just repeat this. MNC, put that right there. And before I do this, let me add my demarcation line. Okay. And this is method 4. Method 4. Lambda. Lambda expressions. Lambda expressions. Okay. So we have for each. Now I'm looking. Oh, I got to put a semicolon up here. All right, save. So, brief recap. We have our for each. Our for statement. When we iterate over the array of names with a for statement, we have to declare a variable I, which is an integer, and then we have to access each element of the names array. So each of these names, right, these strings, are an element of this string array. And this string array has 8 names in it, or 8 strings, okay? And then we have to explicitly figure out, or designate each array element in order to perform an operation on it. In this case, we're checking, this is our condition. Hey, if names I.length is greater than 6, then add the results to this collection. So we're using a collection. And the reason we use the collection for method number 1 and 2 is because there's no telling how many strings would satisfy the criteria. In this case, we know how many because we're writing the criteria, right? And we can count, right? But that's not the point. The point is that dynamically, if we were to create some mechanism to query this array for, and set a dynamic criteria at runtime, right? We wouldn't know. So a collection is great in this particular case because the collection allows us to add as many elements as we want to at runtime. Okay. Method number 2, we used a for each statement. Okay. Now, the nice thing about method 1 is here's the pluses, right, and minuses of each of these ways of doing it. Method number 1, you could modify the string if you wanted to, right? Because it's because you can, right? When you go through the array and step through it like with a for statement, you can modify it. With a string, with a for each statement, you're using an iterator. Okay, and so if you try to modify the string or the collection, I believe you'll get an error, right? I'd have to try it. I'm not sure. I know you can't. I know you're not supposed to modify the collection. Okay, so that's method number 2. So going through it with a string, or with a for each statement, and then we're using the results collection and clearing it before we go through and do it for method number 2. For method number 3, we used language integrated query, Linq. And it looks a little bit like SQL, except a little backwards, right? But still, it's a little more compact. We can use the var here, right? Because it'll dynamically figure out what type the results are. And then we can just step through the Linq results. I declared a new results object, obviously Linq results. Okay, and then go step through those with a for each statement. And then finally, method number 4 is Lambda Expressions. And here we actually have the entire shebang on one line. All right. So Linq results equals names.where. And then this specifies, so you're going like, well, where does S come from? S is dynamically declared, right? It is, the type is inferred by the types that are stored in, or the compiler, I should say, infers the type, or on the runtime system, infers the type based on the types of objects declared in this object here, right? You know, this could be an array of integers for all we know, right? Except we probably wouldn't be doing length operations on integers. So it's inferring the type, okay? So S is going to be the object that we're working with as a result, and then s.length. So results, this method here is going to return the set of results and put it into that var type link results. And then we're just going to iterate through. So let's go ahead and run this and see what happens. And it returns the exact same results. Okay, so that's 4 ways of iterating. Let me pull my thing in because I always forget to do that. That's 4 ways of iterating or querying a string, an array of strings. Okay, an array of strings. So hope you found this video helpful, and I'll be cranking out more soon. If you have ideas, just shoot me an email at rick@pulpfreepress.com, and I'll be happy to oblige. Thank you.